the storyteller. I was the one who would create these stories about alligators snapping at our heels and stepping stone to stepping stone being the way into teleportation into a whole nother world. I would also make up stories about these grocery bags being filled with wind and becoming these great kites that would fill the sky. In my neighborhood, we didn't know racism. We had kids from Peru, from the US Virgin Islands. We had kids from everywhere, including our colorful selves. And inside my house, we were even as different. We had the kid who loved sports to the kid who got punished from reading books. In our neighborhood, we would spray paint the ends of our streets and turn those into the Super Bowls and take over the parks and turn that into our MLB World Series. And from our neighborhood, we brought these stories into our schools. There, we weren't separated from anybody based on sexual identity or race or anything that took us away from our stories until we got to college. In college, that is where I first experienced racism. No, not in my classes, even though there was the microaggressions where professors would ask, "Where's the other one?" when there was only 2 Black kids in class, myself included. No, I first encountered blatant racism when I traveled across the world for a study abroad in Spain. Now, it was my first flight overseas, and I was so excited that my grin had me pinned back to my seat for the full 8 hours. You see, I loved everything about the Spanish culture. I loved the Spanish language. I was looking forward to the Spanish food. I've been studying Spain and Spanish since the 1st grade. So I was actually excited to be amongst the culture, speaking with and learning the Spanish language. But it was when I stood on that beach, looking around and noticing this young girl hiding from me, that I started to realize I was different. You see, in Madrid, that was the first place we went to. In Madrid, it was like every other city, bright lights and marquees, busy and bustling with people. But when I went to my resident hall down in Santander, that is where that racism was very blatant. Looking at that little girl hiding behind her mom, staring up at me in terror, that frightened me because I wondered what was so different about me. And later on, I had kids shooting me with water guns, and I had people throwing bread out of their windows when I walked by. And I heard monkey chants and racial slurs being thrown from car windows as the traffic flowed by. But even all of that, it was that little girl, the one standing behind her mother, staring up at me with terror in her eyes. Standing on that beach, I looked around, and all I saw were bodies that didn't look like mine. All of a sudden, I realized that there weren't really that many Black people up there, if there was any. I felt like the only one. On that beach, there was nobody else with a brown skin that wasn't given to them by the sun. And my friend who was there with me, she was blonde-haired and blue-eyed and of Austrian descent. And she didn't see it either. But see, I never saw her being a blonde and blue-eyed woman. I just saw my friend, the girl I would swap stories with, the human being. But when I was trying to communicate to her how I felt like I was ostracized in the city, as if I didn't belong here, she couldn't understand that because she didn't see it. So after 2 weeks of hiding in my dorm room, of crying and calling my grandmother and telling her, now I get it. That thing that was in my textbooks, the thing that was a February special, was real in front of me. And I told her I'm so sorry because I get it now. And so there were 2 other brown-skinned girls, one of Aztec descent and one from Trinidad. And we banded together and we said, we are going to enjoy ourselves because all we have is 2 weeks left and we would never be here again. And so we took the top of Spain by storm. We went to lighthouses and casinos. We went to great restaurants because we were determined to make the most of our time there. I didn't plan on ever going to Santander again. So I cut my stay short. Luckily I did, because it ended up being September 11th, just a month later. But I was so excited to come back home. I was so excited to come to America because I wasn't ostracized there. I was just an American. I wasn't going to be singled out for anything. And this was a point made when the next month after September 11th, we banded together against the foreign domestic terrorism that we now know as September 11th. I don't think I ever felt more American than I did in the following days. Well, fast forward 11 years, and I became disillusioned because the terrorism was no longer foreign. When my skin color was weaponized in the form of a 17-year-old boy walking home from the store with a bag of Skittles and a can of tea, I became disillusioned. When this kid, Trayvon Martin, was prosecuted post-mortem and accused of using a sidewalk as a weapon against a man who followed him in the dark in a van with a gun, I became disillusioned. When hashtag after hashtag followed Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Freddie Gray, Walter Scott, Sandra Bland, Deborah Danner, just keep going, Stephen Clark, Tatiana Jefferson, Elijah McClain, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Jacob Blake. Just too many hashtags, too many bodies, too many victims to name. And those are just some of the people victimized by intolerance, the domestic terrorism conducted in the form of police brutality and racism. You see, I became disillusioned. The country that I loved didn't love me back. And now this time, I'm not a 20-something standing on a foreign land. This time, I'm a mother of 4 young children. 3 of them who are boys, 2 of them who are grown men. My children, all brown skin, in a country that doesn't love them back. In a country that fears their color and doesn't care about their character. You see, the internet did this funny thing of shrinking the world. We're now just a click away from each other. So, forgive me if I have been disillusioned. Forgive me if I am about to present something to you that you may not have thought of before. Because you see, I racked my brain to figure out why people didn't like my skin color, why people feared my skin color, why my skin color is weaponized, and why this country doesn't love me back. And I started thinking all the way back to my neighborhood, when I was playing with these kids from all different walks of the world and all different walks of life. And I thought about the stories that we told. And I wondered, what was different then? And what's different now? See, when my parents were raising me, they were preaching hard work. They were preaching go after dreams. But other parents apparently were preaching tolerance and kindness. Now, as an author, a story coach, or queen, a screenwriter, and an educator, words matter. They mean a lot to me. And tolerance comes from a place of superiority. You can only tolerate that which you can't understand and that which you think you are better than. And if you don't believe me, I think we need to take a look at the definition in the dictionary. And so the definition is the ability or the willingness to tolerate something that one does not necessarily agree with. Think about that. Why would you teach tolerance of other people when you should be teaching acceptance? See, right now, you might be expecting me to give you the 3 points that most speeches deliver, but I only have one. The world needs less tolerance. We need not come from a place of permitting someone to be who they are, permitting them to exist. We can't tell people that they can be gay or straight, that they can be Muslim or of another religion, that they can be male or female. We can't tell people that they can be. It's not our job to tolerate people. It's our job to accept and to learn and to love and to commune with others. So we're not here to focus on tolerance. See, in a world divided by politics and algorithms, stories are the tools that we possess for that connection, for the understanding, and what this world needs right now, for that healing. Stories remind us that we are more than one world. We are one big neighborhood. We need more stories. They are what show the possibilities of others. From Chadwick Boseman playing the Black Panther, to Gabby Douglas becoming the world's best gymnast, to you sharing your own stories of trials and triumphs and perseverance, no matter what somebody else wanted to project onto you. You see, it is time that we do more than just tolerate each other. It is time that we share our own stories and we listen to those that come from others. So what the world doesn't need is more tolerance. All it truly needs is your story. Thank you.